Hey everyone on YouTube. Today I'm going to be showing you what torque is, how it's used, why it's important, and everyone uses it. Whether you're a mechanic, whether you're an engineer, whether you're none of those, you're just some random person on YouTube who happened to stumble upon this video. I'm going to show you torque and why it's important, and hope you enjoy the content. So what is torque? Torque is a rotation or tendency of rotation experienced by a force. So we would think linearly, if we just push something with a force, it's going to go in the same direction as the force being pushed. But since we have a fixed point here, it's going to cause torque, and the force is actually going to cause this ratchet drawn here to go in a circular motion. That's where we get torque from. It's used in transmission gears. This is a 4-speed, so you have first, second, third, and fourth, with first gear having the most amount of torque because it has the largest radius, and then fourth having the smallest radius, smallest amount of torque. Torque is used on ignitions. So you got 2 times the amount of torque because you're using 2 forces. You got your radius both sides. Turn the key to be able to turn your vehicle on. Torque is also used on your steering wheel. Here's your center point. Using a force, rotate that wheel back and forth. Your vehicle gives many examples of torque. Your engine spinning. Your transmission spinning with the engine, giving torque. You got your drivetrain, your differential spinning, giving torque. You got your axles, and then what's connected to the axles, you got your wheels, which are giving torque so your vehicle can go forward. Now that we kind of understand torque, I want to show you how we can get maximum torque. So here, max torque at a point from the center of the radius is dependent on how perpendicular a net force is to the direction of a radius. So we have 2 vectors here, r and f, which is the radius and the net force that's applied. We have a ratchet here from the center all the way to the radius where the force is being applied. We have radius here, and we have force being applied here. When we get what this is saying is when we get maximum torque, that's going to be at 90 degrees from the radius, which we can see here. Let me draw it. For those of you who don't know, that square right there is a resemblance of 90 degrees. So if I have a ratchet and I'm going to push down towards the center of the ratchet, there will be no motion. But if I put it 90 degrees, it will rotate. Here's a great example of torque. See these lug nuts here? Let me try to take one off by my hand. Bare hand. These things are on here pretty tight. I can use as much force as I want to. I'm not getting that lug nut off. Why? Because I don't have enough force. And that radius, or that little lug nut, is so small. So, what can we do to fix that? Mr. Breaker Bar. Let's try Mr. Breaker Bar on here. Let me put it on. Let me try pushing it here. Try with all my might. I am not going to break that loose. So, we use torque. Let's go all the way down here and apply a force. See if we can break that nut loose. Comes off very easy. Now if we change this torque equation from vector to trigonometry, we can see that torque equals radius times the force applied times sine of the angle theta between the two radius and force. So we have a angle here, and we know, or for those of you that don't know, sine of theta lets us know how 90 degrees we are from one magnitude to the other. So if we have this angle theta, like I was saying before, if that angle is 0 or 180 degrees or negative 180 degrees, and if that force is applied with that angle, we're going to get 0 torque, because that is totally not perpendicular. So sine of 90 degrees, so if we have a force going exactly 90 degrees from the radius, that's going to be sine of 90. Sine of 90 degrees is 1, so we get maximum torque. So let's think of it this way. Those of you guys who work on cars, if I apply a force in this direction, it's going to have that angle theta right there. Well, I'm not going to get maximum torque. If I apply a force here, there's going to be 0 torque. But if I grab it here and I apply the force 90 degrees of here, it's going to be so much easier to break that bolt or whatever you're trying to get off. To see this in an application, we'll use our breaker bar again. Now if I put this breaker bar on here and I push along the radius as hard as I can, that nut is not breaking loose. Now let's try a force here. It is a little easier, but it's not as easy. Now if I put a force 90 degrees from that radius, it's going to be the most amount of torque I could put on this, and it'll break loose easy. To get a better understanding of torque, think of, instead of a ratchet, you have gears of a transmission. Say you have an engine running at a certain RPM, it's going to have the same amount of load. And then let's go first gear. First gear has the largest radius. Second gear has a smaller radius. Well, with the same force applied, that's going to be a smaller amount of torque. Well, maybe some of you are thinking, if I have a smaller gear, let's say fourth gear, overdrive, whatever gear you're in, compared to the larger gears, how is my vehicle able to go faster if I have less torque at that point? Well, you don't need that much force when your vehicle's already going a certain speed. So think of it this way. If you have a cart and you're pushing it from stop, you need more force to be able to get it going from a stop. Well, if it's already being pushed, you might just need a light tap or something to keep that thing going. That's the same principle here. At one point you may have heard me talk about net force. So net force is the amount of forces put on an object, and that net force is what the total amount of force that is experienced by the object. So let's think of an example here. You know those games where you have the rope and a bunch of people on one side, a bunch of people on the other side, and there's a flag in the middle? Well, with net force, you have the forces on this side, forces on this side. Whoever has the greater total amount of force on either side determines where that flag is going to go. So if the left side has a greater force than the other side, that net force goes towards this side and the flag moves left. So to think of torque, the net torque that you have. Let's use an example. We have our ratchet here and we got a bolt. We have the torque experienced by our hand in the ratchet, and then the counter torque experienced by the bolt. So if the torque of my hand equals the torque of the bolt, it's not going to break free. But once the torque used by your hand with the ratchet is greater than the torque of the bolt, that's when the net torque is greater than 0 and the bolt breaks loose. That's what happens when you're working on a vehicle or anything and you have a certain amount of force you're giving on here. Well, then you eventually break the bolt, and that's when you have the greater amount of torque experienced to that counter torque that the bolt's giving you. So we're at the end of our video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please address them in the comments section below. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with more material as I figure out YouTube, making videos, and unlocking the key to cyberspace. So, I'm going to be having more content like this, and also working on vehicles, basic maintenance stuff, and even more advanced stuff like science like this. So stay tuned, and hope you have a great day.